Hello everyone, and welcome to a new part of the book app that we are building using ReactJS. In the previous part, we have built the book details section where it fetch a book by ID and display some basic information just for demonstration and group by sections. So we have the general information section that will display, as the title says, some general information about the book like title, pages, published date. The authors section displays the list of authors for this book, and the photo that displays some photos related to that specific book. So in this part, we'll be working on creating the form. Since this part will be for editing books, we'll replace this information here, the text here, with a form that will allow us to edit the book information. We'll start with the general information, which contains the general form that is actually similar to the add book form, similar to this one. So what we'll need to do is to use this same form and prevent duplicating the form in two places. Here, if we go to our code, we have a component named book form. It contains the form, but it does more than just display the form. It displays the form in a model, and it is responsible for adding the book to the Firestore. So what we will do first is rename this component to add form, and then extract from it the form, the actual form here, the HTML form, into a component named form book. Now, let's change the name of the function. Let's grab this one and the export also name to add book. Now we need to change where we were using the form book to add book. Fortunately, we are using it in a single place, which is the book list. Here in the book list, we decided to integrate the book form. Now it will be add book. We have already the add book imported automatically, and I will remove the book form. Now if we go to our app and test everything, we'll see that all is working fine. Now the next step is to extract the form into its own component, which we'll call it bookform.js. Of course, it will be a functional form, function book form return. It will return the HTML form from the add book. Sorry, it should be here add book. Let me again verify that in my book list I'm importing add book. Yes, it's add book. All is good. Now the book form will contain, as I said, the actual form from here to here, which I'll move it to the book form. Plus, of course, we'll export the book form. Now, as you can see, book form rely on some functions and some state, like the book state, and it needs the onChange function too. What we can do here, also there's the loading, which is used here in the button. So let's first send the loading. First of all, let's import bookform from /bookform, and let's use it here where we have moved the form bookform. Now we'll give it as a prop the loading, which will be equal to loading. Then here my bookform, I'll destructure the loading variable. Next we'll need the onSubmit. Now we can send the onSubmit like this, onSubmit equal to onSubmit. Now we can use the bind here too for the onSubmit, as we did here, in a similar manner. So I will move this statement code from here to here, and I will destructure the onSubmit. Now we'll need the book variable also. book equal to book. Concerning the onChange will be similar for both component. So for now I will move it to book form, and I'll send the book form the set book state equal to set book. Plus we have the error. In a similar way we can also send the error. Now in a case like this one where we are sending a lot of props and the props have the same name as the assigned variable, what we can do is a shortcut which will be like this. So here what is happening, first we open the accolade to signify that we're placing some JSX statement, so that JSX will consider this code inside these accolades as JavaScript statement. Then we'll open an object and we'll spread it. This object will include all these props, the loading, the book, the set book. So let me remove each one, loading, book and set book, plus the error. So I'll keep only the onSubmit as a separate props attribute for the book form. Now we still need to have some of the I elements that are used here in the book form, like the message, the button, the field. We need those here, but not the model. Concerning the add book component, we remove the message and the field since we are not using them. All the other import will stay as is. All right. Now let's test. We got an error. Error is not defined. Oh, of course, because I haven't destructured the error. What also I forget to destructure the set book also. Set book. So, sorry, I made a mistake. It should be here. So we have the loading, the onSubmit, the book, the error, the set book. All right. Now everything should work as expected. Let's try to add a book. Book 20, pages 1000, and a date. So if I save, I have been redirected to the book detail route. So for now all is good. Now we need to create the edit book component. But first, before creating the edit book component, I noticed here something, a repetition of the object book. So what I will do is create a constant that will contain this object. So I will name it constant book, which will be equal to this object here. Now I will replace this object with a new object that contains the property of the book object. So I'll spread the book object. The same for this set book here. We'll also send a fresh book object. Oh, unfortunately the name here book, we cannot use it since we already did use it in the constant. So I'll create book object, book obj, and I'll replace this book and the other with the book obj. Now if I quickly run a test, I can add, let's say 21, 500 pages, and if I save, everything is working fine. Now let's add the edit book component. This component will be similar to the add book, so I'll copy the code from the add book to the edit book. Now the edit book will not have the model, neither the button. So let's remove everything related to model. Here model show also, and this button here that will trigger the model also, we don't need it anymore. The model here also, we remove it. We'll end up with a single book form, so we can get rid of this empty element. We'll keep the toaster, of course. Now here the changes are in the onSubmit function. First, instead of adding a new book, now we have an ID of a book that we can use to get a document. So we can use doc with the ID. This will get the document that contains this ID. And then instead of add, we'll use set. Now what the set will do is override the document selected here by the ID. What we will need to do is merge the document. So to be able to merge this attribute with the current document in Firestore, we'll add a second parameter that is an object that contains merge property that is set to true. So with merge set to true, now this object here that we are sending with the function set will be merged with the current object online, which could contain others and other information that we don't need to override, don't need to lose those information. So this will edit now the book. We remove the set is model also here. We will keep the add toast. Now it will be successfully updated the book. All right. Now here we don't need to redirect to any place. For the error, in case there are an error, the message will be an error occurred while trying to update the book. All right. Now here, since we are not using the docref anymore, let's remove the assignment. Now let's use this edit book component in the book general component. So I'll import the edit book. And use it here instead of the P. Now, one thing I forgot to remove is the use history here, which we are not using anymore because we removed the redirect. So also we can rid of these 2 lines of code. Now let's try to edit a book. Let's say we have here book 9. All right, let's open the console to make sure there's no error. Lots of error. Each child in a list should have a unique key for toaster. All right, this is easy. In the UI, we have the toaster. We need to give for each toaster a key. Let the key be. So here we can add a second parameter that will be the index, incrementing index. So I'll give the key the actual index, which is not efficient, but for our case here, we don't need anything special. So this is for the first error. Now receive false for a non-Boolean attribute class name. Actually, here we have an error in the book menu. It seems with the class name here. So if this is false, we are sending false as a Boolean. So we need to convert it to string. What I will do is convert the whole statement to string, as mentioned here in the comment for the error. So I'll use this for all the classes to string. This will make sure that the final value, whether there is active or no, should be a string. So this error has been solved. Now first let's reload to see if this error will come again. No. Let me add a book 22, page 200. If I save, I get the error again. Can't perform a React state update on an unmounted So this error is related to this section here. Here we are using the setBook to set the book to clear the form, set the form to an empty book object, and then we are setting the isModel to false. Then immediately we are redirecting to another page, another route, without making sure that these two operations has been done. So first, for the book object, I guess we can get rid of this. We don't need it anymore since we are redirecting. We don't need to clear the form. For the set isModel false, so let's make sure that this works as expected. Now let me refresh the the page, and let's add another book 23, 100 page, a date. If I save now, all right, I'm redirecting, but I'm still getting the error. Oh, we have here this set loading to false. Also, we need to remove it because this is running at the end of this onSubmit function. So what is happening once we fire this push here function, before it is redirected, it tries to run the set loading. So let's remove it since we already are redirecting. Only in case we have an error, we need to set the loading to false. In case there's an error, for example, if I leave the form empty and save, here I need to remove the loading. So again, let's add a new book 24, 200, and a date. And if I save now, all right, I don't get anymore the error, which is perfect. Now, as we can see here, we have the form. All we need to do is to test it, but the form is empty. So this is a problem. We need to find a way to make this form filled with the data of the current selected book. Now to solve this issue, we need to give the edit book the actual object book that is fetched by the book details component. So here I'll expect also a book object, and instead of having an empty object here, I can have a initialized object with the value sent through the book props. So here I'll grab the book from the props and use this book variable to initialize my empty object here with the value of the current book. But as you can see here, we have the naming conflict. What I will do, I will keep here as a prop, and for the ID that I'm using here, I'll use props.id, and here I will use props dot. I can grab the attribute here since they are similar, props.book dot. All right, so let us test it here. There's an error, cannot read property title of undefined. All right, I'm not sending the book in the props here in my book general, so I need to pass it the book variable as a book prop. So now it is populated with the values of the book except for the date. Now for the date, it needs to be in a proper format. As you can see the value here, this is the timestamp. Let's check the component, the state of the book form. We have the book here and the published date. This is actually an object date sent by Firestore, and what we are seeing here is the string representation of this object. So what we can do is similar to what we have done previously in the book list. If you recall, we have used some date manipulation. In the book item, we did some date manipulation to be able to print the date. So let us try to use the same for our edit book. Here we can transform it to date string, which let's say to date, to JavaScript date. Alright, so after some research, I found this built-in method that transforms the date into an ISO string, and then we'll slice it let me check what to isostring actually give. So if I reload my component and check my state, so it will return this format date, which is standard ISO. So this is a very helpful method. Now I need to remove this part here for the time and time zone. I'll slice it 0 from 0 to 10. Alright, so here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Alright, so this way we'll have the date working properly here. Now let us try and edit a book. So let me change the name. Let me add another 4 and let us save. Successfully updated the book. It seems that it worked, but we are not able to see here the update taking place live. So if I refresh, what is happening actually? 244 if I save. I'm getting the success console, but it seems that Firebase is not actually saving. If it's not saving, then it is adding. Wait a moment, am I here? I need to grab the ID. What I can do is pass it down to book general. So in my book details, I'll pass also the ID to book general, and in book general I'll pass again the ID to edit book. Oh, I'll need to grab it here first. So what was happening here, without the ID we'll be adding new books. So this is how Firebase the set function work. In case here it's empty, the set will add a new book. So now if to prove it, we can go back to library and check the book 244. Here it is added twice. So now it should work. So if I go again, let's say to book 9 and type book 99, now if I save, now it's saved successfully first, and if I reload, now it's been changed to book 99. Now it seems once I'm updating the book, the form is being reset. This is because of here I'm setting the book again to the default object at the top. So let's remove. We don't need to change the value here once we have saved. Plus, now since I'm using the book object only in one place, I will hard code these values here and remove the creation of this object. Alright, now again, if I change to book 99.3 and make the page 900 and change the date from 11/30 to 10/30, or let me change the year to 2019, if I save, alright, and if I reload, all the value has been persisted to the database, which is great. Next we'll be working on the authors section. What we will do first is add a form for the user to be able to add authors. So first thing we will do is create an author form .js, which will be a functional component. It will return the form here, which will be form, and the input will be inside the form. Now for the input, I will import the field from UI. With the field I can create field. Sorry, it is field with capital F. The first input will be the author name, input, type text, name is name, and ID will be author name. Another field also for the author image, type will be file, the name will be photo, and the ID will be author photo, which will allow us to add a profile photo for the author. Now for the field I can add the label. Here will be the name, and here it will be label photo. One last field is for the description of the author, so this will be a text area. Now the text area doesn't need a type, it needs rows, which will be 8. So let's check this form in the browser by adding it to book authors. So let's import the form here. And display it below the paragraph we're supposed to list the authors in case there's authors. Now I'll create a division. Inside of it I will put the author form. So I made a mistake here. The field is like this field. Now I'll export the author form. Now for the label, it is label text. Alright, so this is our form. Now the rows here, I'll make it 5 for the text area. It seems a little bit large. So this is our form. Now in order to be able to save an author, add an author, let's put it inside an H4. Add a new author, which is great. I'll create here an horizontal line. Now to add a new author, we'll need to rely on the Firestore object. Now to add a new author, now the author value in our Firestore will be an array of authors. So each book will have an author field of type array, and this array will contain the authors. Each author will be represented as an object that contains the name and description and photo. Now we'll need to add an item in the authors array of a certain book. Now to do this, first we'll import Firebase from Firebase/app. Now in the function, we need to have a function that will be fired once the onSubmit event has been triggered of the author form. So what we will do here is create this function that will be stored in an onSubmit variable or constant. Now we'll need the event to prevent the default behavior. Next, we'll await for the Firebase.firestore.collection books.document. The document will be the ID of the book, so I'll need here also the ID in the props. So the doc will be ID. Now let's add the ID as a prop for book authors in the book general, not book general, book detail. So the book authors here will have also the ID. So now we got the specific document we need. What we need to do to save an author is to update the document. The update will allow us to update a certain field in an object or a document. Update will accept an object with the list of the fields that we need to update. Here we'll need to update authors, and we'll need to push an object into the authors array. To do this, Firebase has a function specific for this task. To be able to do this, Firestore has a function for this specific task. So first we get from Firestore the field value. The field value is a helper that contains several methods to be able to manage our data. Here we'll be using the arrayUnion to unite an item with an array. Now arrayUnion accepts the object as it is, the item. Now here our item is the value of the book form. So here on the onSubmit also we'll need the author too. And we'll give the arrayUnion the author object. Alright, this will add the author object to the array of the specific document that we are retrieving from Firestore. Now after adding the author, we can send a toast. So to send a toast, we'll get the toast context first. Now here there is something that is provided by React, and this is the use context, and allow us to get the context value. So instead of using the toaster context.consumer here as a component, we can use the use context to get the context value anywhere in the function component. So here we'll create a new constant that will retrieve the value of the context, which we'll get it from use context, and we'll provide to the use context the toaster context. Now this is an object that has two values. What we'll need the add toast. We can destructure the add toast like this. This we'll use it after on submit, after we successfully add an author to the book. So I'll add first a try catch. Here we'll console dot error, the error. Here we'll add a message too. An error has occurred while adding an author. Next we'll need to display here an error message. So in the author form we'll also get the message component, and we'll display it here. Message type error, and the error will be error. Now this message is a general component for displaying messages, not just error. The text that we are providing the message is named error, which is confusing. So if I go now to my UI and check the message component, I'll see here that yes, the error is used as a text. So let's rename it to text. So because it could be a success or not just error. So we rename it to text, and we'll get the error from the parent component, the book authors, and this error will use it as the value of the text. Now we'll also need to edit here the message prop. Now it's, instead of error, it's text. Alright, we also need a button. Which will have a type of submit and a label of add. Now we also need the loading and the onSubmit function. Now the onSubmit, we'll use it here in the form to be fired once the event onSubmit has been triggered. And the loading will be used on the button. Now in the try catch, I'll add the code that is responsible for adding the book. I will wait for it to finish. In case there's no error, the code will continue to the next statement. And here we'll first add the toast. Add toast. The toast will be similar to what we are doing to edit book. It will be an object that have two properties, the text and the type. So the text will be author added successfully. Its type is success. Now we'll also need to add an error and a loading state. So I'll create a constant loading, set loading, which and by default will be false. The also error is a state. By default will be false or null. Now in the success case, I will remove the loading, set loading to false. Once the onSubmit start, I will set the loading to true. And in case I have an error in the try block, I will be sent to the catch section, which I will set the error to unable to add author, and I will set loading to false. Now concerning the await, we need to have an async function by adding keyword async before the function. Now for the toaster context, we have the wrong path here. What we need to do is use 2 times the go back to directory. One more thing I need to do is to send the right props to author form. So I can use the shortcut to add the loading error. Then I'll add the onSubmit. Should be equal to onSubmit. Now the onSubmit require as a parameter the author. Now to get the author from the form, I'll need to use a local state. So I will create the author state here. Author set author will be equal to use state, and at the beginning will be an empty object that has the name to an empty string, the photo to an empty string for now, and the description as we name it. Let me check the author form. We name it, no, we haven't given it a name. It will be description, author description. So description will be also an empty string. So this is the initial state of the object. Now I need to pass the author as a prop to author form, and in the author form I need to set the value to be controlled by React local state. So the value will be author here dot name. First I'll need of course to grab the author or destructure the author from the props. The same way for other field here, author dot photo. Actually for the input type file we cannot control it with local state like this. There is another way, we'll work on it later. but for the text area it is the same way, author dot description. Now what we need is to track the changes once the user edits the form. We need to grab this value into the state and update the state. So we'll need to add an onChange event, which will have a value, let's say handle change. Now we need to create the handle change. Handle change is similar to the one created here in the book form, so I'll copy it and paste it here in book authors. Oh, sorry, in author form. So on change here, set author. Now now we need also the set author. Here we'll have to add the set author too. I think we're ready to test it. Handle change is not defined. So what is the name? On change. The name is on change. Let me change it to handle change. All right. There's an error. Cannot read property. Prevent default of undefined. All right. Of course. Here's the on submit. I'm calling it as a function. Yes, but I need to bind to it as we did for the edit book or add book. I need to bind to it the parameter author. So the on submit, once it is called, will have by default the author as a parameter. We're editing the book 993, so let's add an author. We name it John Doe. Now we'll keep the file, the photo empty. Later we'll work on the uploading photo to Google. Here I'll add lorem ipsum. Oh, I'm not able to write. There's some problem in the naming, I guess. Here we have named description, and in the author form it is named. Oh, here's the value need to be a child of the text area. So we'll put it here as a child, and we remove the value. So now I can edit it. I'll add lorem ipsum, and if I try to add this author, I'll get an error, which is oh, I know I have made an error, and it is here the Firestore is a function that I need to call, which return the object from the Firestore that I can call on it, the collection function. So now I guess after fixing this error here, I can add a book. Let me reload the page, and again John Doe, lorem ipsum. If I add, I get author added successfully. Now the new author isn't shown automatically here in the author list, but if I refresh, I suppose I'll be able to see it, but there's an error. Objects are not valid as a React child. Okay. Here our mistake is in the book author, where we are listing the authors. So here book.authors 0, I need to, let's say, list the name. I can't not print the object as it is in JSX. So here we got the name John Doe. We'll change this in a second. So I can add another author, let's say, I don't know, Mike Doe, lorem ipsum $seed amet. So if I add, also I need to refresh to get the John Doe. We'll fix this of course later. Oh, okay. Now, as the error say here below, that we need to use value for the text area, which I was using it, but it wasn't working. So let me try again. Value, and let me close it like this. So seriously, oh, all right, now it isn't working. So oh, we have made a mistake for the text area. We haven't provided the onChange value. Now it's supposed to work. Let's say Tina Doe and lorem ipsum $seed amet. Now if I add, I guess everything should be working fine. All right. So here in the book author, we're showing only the first author. Now to see the collection of author, we need to map. We need to add dot map. Inside the map, we'll get the author, and the map need to return an element. Let's say span or div or p. What about p? Any element which will contain the author name. Now we should see the list of authors. All right, there's an error. All right, of course, not authors, the whole array. All right, now we have the 3 created authors, which is working fine. Now, for the authors section, as we have seen, we had an issue. Once we add a new author, the new author won't be displayed in the author list section. For example, if I add now John Doe, lorem ipsum, it will be added successfully, but the author won't be displayed here in the list. Only if I reload, I can see the author John Doe. So what we need to do to solve this problem is we need to have access for the book state here in the add author. The book state contains the list of author for the book, and once we add a new author, we need to update this array of author inside the book state from within the add author. Now the book state is declared here in the book details component, and the book details displays the book author. So we'll need to pass the set book extracted from the book state. So instead of using useState, we have a better solution that is provided by React, which comes in the name of useReducer. It is the same as useState, but give us more control on how we manipulate the state, especially if it's a complex object, which in our case which contain sub element like the authors, which contain arrays. So instead of use state, we can import useReducer. But first, before solving this problem, we have here another problem. If we check the console, we have some warnings. The first one is each child in a list should have a unique key prop. Here we're talking about the author list. We haven't provided a key for the list, for the map. Another warning is we are nesting an element in an invalid way. So if we go to book authors and we check here the map that published the list, first we need to provide a key to this element, which will be author, let's say dot name. And second, we need instead of p, since we already have a p, we need to use, for this case, I will change this p into div. This way we'll have a div that have a p child, which is a valid HTML. So now if I reload, I'll solve both problems. So let's go now and implement the useReducer. So here, instead of use state, I'll use useReducer. Now first we'll create a constant that represents the initial state. So constant, let's name it book, which will be equal to the initial state of the book, which is null. I will name it initial state, which will be equal to null. Next, we'll create a reducer function, reducer. This function requires two parameters. The first is a state. The second is the action required. Now this reducer responsibility is it will return a new state. Depend on the action, we'll create a switch against the action dot type, and depend on the action type, we'll manipulate the state appropriately. So in case it is add author, we'll do the proper state manipulation. Another case will be remove author. Also we'll do the manipulation to remove an author. In case of default, if it's not either add author or remove author, it's an unknown state, we'll throw an error. Unknown action. Alright, now for add author, we'll need to return first a new state, and in this new state we'll spread the old one, but the author array will contain the old one, the old author, state dot authors plus the new author, which is sent with the action. Now to remove an author, we'll also return a new state. It will have the previous state fields, but the author will be the old one minus dot filter author, where author dot name not equal to name. So we remove the author by name, action dot name. So we'll send the name of the author, and we remove the author that has the same name inside the filter. Now we have our reducer set up. Now here, instead of use state, we'll use the useReducer, and instead here of book and set book, we have the book and the dispatch. And the reducer also requires two parameters, the reducer and the initial state. We can name it here book dispatch to be more specific. So now we need to use the book dispatch to send action to manipulate our state. So in the book author, we'll send a dispatch props, which will be equal to book dispatch. Now in the author component, we can change the state. Once we successfully add an author, we'll change the state by using the dispatch, which we can destructure it here from the props dispatch. Now we'll call dispatch, which will take an action object, which the type will be add author, and it will also require the author added. So we can use the object shortcut in ES6. So this is similar to author equal author. Since the name of the property and the variable name are equal, we can use the shortcut by typing just the variable. So here we are using the dispatch. Back to my book details, I'll check if I'm using the old set books 38. I'm using the set book, which I need to use the dispatch here. Now, as we are seeing here, I'm setting the whole book. So if I need to set the whole book here, I can create also a new reducer, which I can name it set book. What will return, of course, is a new state that has the previous state plus the action dot book. Action dot book. Or we don't need actually the previous state. Here we're overwriting the book with a new book that has been fetched from Firestore. So now we'll use here, instead of set book, book dispatch, which is an object that have a type of set book, and also it requires the book itself. All right, so now we can save. So book will be equal to doc.data. Now I can save, and let's give it a try. So let's add a new author, Sam Doe, lorem ipsum. Now if I add the book, I get the list automatically updated, which is cool. Now I have here two errors in the console. Two children name with the same key, author.name. Of course, I made a mistake for the book author here. The author.name is sent as a string. It should be inside accolades to get the value of the author.name instead of using it as a string. So now I can go back and let's say we choose book 17. For the author section we can add, let's say, John Doe, lorem, and if I add, state.authors is not iterable. Oh, here the author is not always available, so we need to make sure that the author is actually available. So what I can do is here make a condition. So if state.author, use it. If no, use this, use an empty array. So this will work. So now if I choose another book again, let's say title 11, and go to the author, add John Doe and lorem. If I add, all right, it's working perfectly. All right, now let's add another one, John Clark, Clark, lorem ipsum, add. All right, John Clark. If I go to book library and again, if I visit book 17, author John Doe, book 11, author. All right, everything working perfectly. Now we have the authors list here displayed, and we can add new authors. What we will do next is add the ability to delete an author. So before I delete an author, first I want to refactor this block here, which is responsible for displaying the list of authors in case there's author, or no authors in case there's no authors. So this section here, I want to move it to its own component, which I'll name it book author. So I'll create a new component called book author.js, which will be, of course, a functional component. In the prop, I need the author, and I will return the block here, the paragraph, and I will export this component. Now we need to add an anchor link for the delete operation. Now there will be an on-click event. We'll send a function which will be delete or handle delete. So this handle delete function, we can either introduce it here in the author component, or we can send it as a parameter to the author component. The difference is that if we introduce it here in the author component, then we need to send the dispatch that modifies the state. I'll choose to send the dispatch and introduce the handle delete function here. Constant handle delete, which will be, first we'll get the event, and we'll prevent the default behavior, so the link won't link anywhere. Then we need to use Firebase, so import Firebase from Firebase/app. Now here, what we need to do is, first it needs to be an async function, and we need to await for the delete operation, which will be firebase.firestore.collection books. Then we need to grab the specific doc. For that we need the ID sent as a prop. So here I'll get the document by ID. Then we need to call the update method. Now the update method requires an object as a parameter. In this object we specify the fields that need to be updated. So in this case it's authors. Then we'll use a specific function provided by Firestore that will modify array field. This function will be firebase.firestore.fieldValue.arrayRemove. In this case we need to remove an item from the array. This item will be the author, so the arrayRemove will check for the availability of this object in the array and remove it in case it finds one. We need to wrap it in a try-catch statement to catch any error in case there's an error. So here we'll console.log the error, and here in case it is removed we need to dispatch an action with type remove author and the author name which will be author.name. Then we need to add a toast, so I will import the toaster context from UI toaster context, and I'll also need to grab the use context from React. Now with the use context I can assign the value of my toaster context to a constant, so I'll create a constant. Now from the value I need to destructure the add toasts, and I'll run the use context function and provide to it as a parameter the toaster context. Now I have the add toast. I can use it anywhere in my component. Here I will add a toast with a text remove author successfully, and the type will be success. In case there an error, also I'll add a toast with the text error deleting author, type will be error. So let's now import this book author component into book authors. So I'll use import author book author from /book author, and I will replace this block of HTML here with the book author element, and I'll give it the author plus the dispatch and the ID. So I can use here the shortcut, since the prop's name and the variable assigned to it are the same, so I can use the shortcut here. So author, ID, and dispatch. Alright, One thing I need to fix is here. We need to extract the toaster context from the returned object. One more thing I need to modify before testing concerning the book author here. This key here is not efficient anymore. It will not be detected. I need to give it to the parent element of each item, and here the parent element for each item is the book author. So this is where I need to provide the key. Alright, now here for this book we have 3 authors. Let's try to delete, for example, Tina Doe. Now if I click delete, alright, it seems like we have an error. Add toast is not a function. We have an error with add toast, which should be, I guess, without s. It should be add toast without an s. This is the error is from book authors, and here we remove the s. Also here we need to remove the s. So let's test. Here I make sure I reload again to make sure everything is fine. As you can see, it is worked, the delete author. Now we'll try again to make sure that also the add toast will function properly. So let's delete Mike Doe. It is deleted now successfully. Let's add another author to make sure all is working fine. The whole process is working smoothly. Mike Doe again, and lorem. If I add, alright, now I can delete it. Perfect. Let's add now 2 author, Mike Doe and another Doe. Let's now delete one in the middle. Perfect. And let's delete the last one. Perfect. So now if I go to my console, my Firebase console, and check my database, here we are editing the book 993. So if alright, this is book 993, and as we can see, there's only one John Doe. Let me now add Mark Doe with a description. Lorem. If I add and I check my database, I see here is a description set up properly. Now all is good. This is the end of this video. In the next part we'll be working on adding a photo for the author and adding photo for the book. Plus we'll work on some refactoring and some improvement concerning the app. For example, here concerning the edit book, for example, and the add book, they share some similar functionality, the loading, the error, and both have also the onSubmit handler. So we'll refactor, we remove these parts that is repeating in every CRUD operation and put them in a single place. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next part of this series, where we are working on this big application for adding managing libraries. See you soon.